America at the end of World War II was very paranoid. It had just come out of the Manhattan Project. It had fought Japan, and it had UFOs coming in over Los Angeles. Yes. It was absolutely, there was an air war going on over the UFO air war of 1950 in America, where UFOs were being shot out the sky, and the Americans turned around to Churchill and said, "Oh, nothing going on, Mr. Churchill, it's all a big laugh, don't worry about it." Meanwhile, there was dogfights going on with UFOs. Now, they strongly believed at the time, the US intelligence community in 1950, before the 1970s remote viewing program, they were looking at the psychic elements of UFOs, and they strongly believed, and I believe also, that portals ritual, sacrificial ritual, portals, the occult practices, when cranked up to a certain level of intention, all these magical ceremonies that we see, and intensity, they had reason to suspect that a portal opened, and they had reason to suspect that the United States was being attacked by these UFOs from the foundation of the kind of these occult portals opening, and they were right on the money. That is indeed,
And I also wonder, and it's not a new thought, whether the Philadelphia experiment, let's say it happened, that caused a rift.
There's a possibility, there is. I mean, the Americans set up they set up two covert agencies. They set up Majestic 12, and they also set up something called the Collins Elite in 1950.
I hadn't heard of this one.
And the Collins Elite were the ones that were looking at UFOs from a demological angle.
Really?
The Catholic Church, which is the biggest intelligence organisation in the world, and still is probably to this day, has studied the difference between demons, angels, and aliens very closely. And there's a very good interview on Binall of America, regarding a Catholic Monsignor who's an expert in demonology.
It's not
and
Valducci,
angels.
Is it? Or?
Yes, Valducci, that's the one. Valducci.
He's now passed on, sadly.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, hellfire. Well, he was the guy who was looking at those issues, and the US government was looking at those issues as well, because their planes were getting shot out the sky, and all across the world, aircraft accidents were increasing in 1950. Planes were being shot out the sky.
Well, they had Mansell, didn't they? Thomas Mansell go down in 46.
They did in 46, and they had various Korean air races. It was quite hilarious in a black comedy kind of caper what was going on, but it wasn't. It wasn't funny at all.
Well, people like, again, Wilbert, the Canadian radio engineer, actually, Wilbert B. Smith, was talking about the disassociation of the fabric, the atoms and the structure of the planes coming into contact or near contact,
quite common,
and causing the dissociation.
It looked like something out of a
material.
Roadrunner movie, where you had the cockpit and the pilot in mid-air, his airframe ripped to pieces by the UFO, and the other thing that spooked them was the UFOs coming over their UHF frequencies and calling family members' names, and that actually caused a lot of Russian cosmonauts to crack up. A lot of them needed psychiatric help because they were subjected to something called space whispering, whereby when they were up in space, they were being whispered to about their family members. They were instructed that they were too young to venture outside of Earth, get back down to Earth, that kind of thing. A lot of them needed psychiatric help because of that.
Very interesting.
And so it's interesting, isn't it? And so America was also putting up with the situation regarding the Nazis, regarding Antarctica, of which Britain was deeply involved in. Before America was hunting the Nazis in Antarctica, Britain was doing it under something called Operation Tamerlan, which was a specialist thing they were doing. They were hunting the Nazis and the UFOs in Antarctica because they knew they were there, and America followed suit. So you had this scenario of America and other nations dealing with a UFO situation that was, to their perception, would be extremely malevolent. Little knowing that there are actually, in fact, there is transaction going on with more peaceful, albeit grey, in terms of the grey man, albeit the grey aliens can be grey people. They can have agendas, as Philip Corso said. They are, the US Army was aware of them. They were aware that they were abducting people, implanting them, and so on and so forth. But they just sat back and observed.
And do you feel, just bringing back to